Happy Chinese New Year, everyone! So, I actually got a half day off work today because it's the Chinese New Year. And I decided to make this video as a special video. So, we're gonna be going over the meta in Korea. So, whatever banner that was released in Korea, we're gonna assume that's the order of the release for the global and the Asia server. So, we're gonna start with the Lyudmila banner. The Lyudmila banner is actually a very good banner. The problem with Lyudmila is she isn't a must-have unit, or she isn't a unit that you'll struggle without. So there are actually a lot of top-tier formations who use Lyudmila. What Lyudmila does is she has taunt ignore and she hits from the back. So she hits the last 3 tiles, and the first tile she deals 300% of her health. So the way you build Lyudmila is with 2 vital ruins. So you can use a flat and a percent ruin for the maximum efficiency. So that's the way people build her. And then the crit damage, you can build it up using your supports. So for example, if you have 100% crit damage, if Lyudmila's health is 10,000 and Lyudmila will do 300% damage, that'll be 30,000 damage. But if you have a 100% crit rate and 100% crit damage, you're gonna be doing 60,000 damage that ignores armor. So some weaknesses for Lyudmila was the second banner that would be released, which is the Albion banner. So anything that's buffed with Albion, Lyudmila will struggle to kill because it will have 100% damage reduction and 100% agi. But we'll go into that a bit later on. So the way people dealt with Lyudmila was first with Cecilia. They tried putting Cecilia back, which essentially meant that Nartas was in a safer spot. When Nartas was in a safer spot, you could build a lot of formations. What the other group of people did was they started putting their damage units at the front, and then they started putting their tanks at the end. Now this was more effective because this Cecilia method was actually the very downfall of Cecilia. During the Lyudmila patch, Cecilia's win rate went from 51 or 52% to around 48. So anything below 50 you don't want to be using in arena. Now there are some exceptions. For example, the top 10 always will still use Cecilia. This is because in the top 10 you'll meet the same 3 or 4 people, so you can use Cecilia in certain spots to counter a certain person you don't want to be climbing. So that was pretty much the highlight for the Lyudmila banner. She hits 3 tiles, but the other 2 tiles, which aren't the main target, will only die if and only if they are mages. Keep in mind though that Lyudmila will also have a hard time if the mage is something like a Livia, because Lyudmila isn't immune to stats weakening, so that's also a consideration. So for the top tier or the high tier, most often I see them one-shotting Livia very easily, but as for Sapphire and below in Korea, they seem to be having a very hard time. So this is most likely not because of the support in my opinion, but rather the health ruins you use with Lyudmila. So that's the biggest difference I've seen, because oftentimes most people are using the same supports at the same level. So the only difference I see from the analyzing the arena teams in Korea is the health ruins. The top tier players who have been playing for a lot longer have better health ruins. So that's a consideration. If you want to build Lyudmila, you better make sure you have 2 legend ruins, 2 6-star legend ruins, which are pretty decent, or at the very least BBB legend ruins. So right now my best legend ruins are around 60% health. That's just to give you an idea. 40%, 45, that's really bad. So try to aim for around 50, 55% health rune. And then for the flat, try to aim for at least 1,300. And then it would be better if both of your runes would have the additional health substat. So the flat rune will have a percent substat, and the percent rune will have a flat substat. Sorry about that. So After Lyudmilla, sorry, I forgot to mention that we won't be talking about the 4 stars. We'll just be going over the 5 stars. So after Lyudmilla, we do have the Albion banner. And with the Albion banner, when she was first released, I wasn't sure if she was good or bad because her kit was just so weird. But I'll explain what Albion does. Albion is essentially a Themis plus an Eindolin. She buffs herself in a cross range, and all of the other units she buffs will receive taunt. Now, Albion will also give 100% agility, and she will increase your agility cap. What does this mean? I'm sorry, the graze cap. When you proc agility, you have a chance to graze. So for example, you have 20% agility. That means you have 20% chance to graze. Grazing means you reduce the damage by 35%. 35% is a fixed number. So I'll put it here. Fixed number, that's a fixed number, okay? Fixed number. 35% is a fixed number. And essentially, Albion will give you 100% chance to graze. So instead of 20, 15, which is the average for most characters, you'll get 100% chance to graze. Keep in mind that graze doesn't work on fixed damage, but that's a small detail for what I'm explaining. So graze, so you have 100% chance to reduce the damage by 35%. But the thing is, Albion also increases the graze cap. So she will increase it by this amount because I forgot, but it's like 20. I'm gonna put it here. This is the amount of graze that she's gonna give you. This is the amount of graze, alright? So this is really good. And the other thing is, she'll also give your characters max damage reduction. Now keep in mind though, a lot of the tanks in the meta right now, Glacia, Granhildr, Benchina, they all do have some type of damage reduction. So this isn't utilized too much by them, maybe by Mamonir or something, but the thing is, she still gives you max damage reduction. So example, you have 80% instead of 100, you fill up the small gap and you get 100% damage reduction. Now what is damage reduction? Damage reduction when it's like defense. So 100% defense will reduce the damage by 100%. But the thing is, damage reduction, 100% damage reduction will reduce the damage by only 70%. So that's the difference. It's slightly inferior to defense. So that's just the difference. I was just trying to explain that. And the thing is, with Albion, the combo with Albion is actually with Granhildr. So using her with any other unit is kind of iffy. For example, if you keep in mind her buffs are not removable. You cannot remove. I'm sorry, her buffs are removable. You can remove them. So if you use, for example, a Mamonir, if Mamonir gets hit by a Kyria, she will not. Her taunt will get removed. If your Mamonir gets hit by a Yuri, or your Mamonir gets hit by a Valze, if she gets hit by a Valze, taunt gets removed. But if she gets hit by an Angelica or a Yuri, the buffs will either get removed or Mamonir will get prohibited, which means that she's useless in round 2. You get the idea. It's a removable buff. So if you guys don't already know, Granhildr is a skill which prevents her from receiving debuff skill types. So something that removes a buff is a debuff. So she cannot receive that. So essentially, if you pair her with Albion, the buffs that Albion gives her cannot be removed. What does this mean? Normally, Granhildr will be one-shot by a very good Angelica. She will be one-shot by a very good Angelica. She will be one-shot by Barbara with a perfect two perfect crit rate ruins, etc. There are a lot of things that can slowly wilt her down. Or, for example, a Dalvi and then a strong DPS following Dalvi, like a Yuri or a Taylor, there's a good chance she will die. But with Albion, the risk of her dying round 1 is very minimal. It's almost impossible to kill her round 1. No, not almost impossible. It's impossible to kill her round 1. Keep in mind though that this is for Granhildr plus 12 up because she gets the healing from the damage plus 12 up. But even with a low skill level Granhildr, I think Albion will still be worth. Keep in mind though that Albion's use rate is not very high. It's around 35%. It's always been like that until now. So it fluctuates just by maybe 3 to 5%, but it doesn't really move that much. Um, what else? So this might be because not everyone has Granhildr, and the thing is, it's really hard to counter the Albion deck because what people do is, since Granhildr is not immune to fixed damage, and the thing that always kills her with this combo before was Livia, what people started doing is Albion Granhildr to taunt round 1. That's the protection for round 1. And then for round 2, they put a Livia with a higher taunt priority than Granhildr. So since a Glacia with a higher taunt priority than Granhildr, and what does is Glacia will block off Livia, and so Granhildr can continue tanking. Another thing which people did besides the Glacia thing was also a Belaith. So if you add a Belaith into the mix and you buff Albion, essentially all the units within Albion's range will also become skeletons. This is extremely good because it's just a smart move. You essentially imagine you're buffing 4 units. One of them dies, it becomes a skeleton. Now the next turn, Albion will still buff that skeleton and give it taunt. So your enemy DPSs will still be hitting the skeleton. So it's just a really good move. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Albion. The thing about Albion is she doesn't have Albion Darwina, they don't have any offensive buffs. So that's just a consideration because you'll probably have 1 or 2 offensive support. So you have to consider if you want a third. So for example, right now I personally am using 3 supports, but I don't really recommend that. I'm using Mitch, Rafithia, and Aindolin. So in the future, I'm going to be changing Aindolin for Albion. So that's it for Albion. We're going to move on to the next banner. So the next banner that was released after Albion was actually the one I was most excited about, and that's the Edin Veronia banner. So we're going to talk about Edin first. So essentially, Edin still does a lot of damage. A lot of damage. So Edin's stat enhancement isn't removable. That's true for most stat enhancements. So over time, he increases his stats, and the thing is, they also gave him some base defense. Before, he only had the damage reduction. Now he has some base defense. They gave him around 35, I think. If it's 35, I'm gonna put it here. If it's not, it's something else. So it's here. So they gave him this amount of defense. And the thing is, with 2 defense runes, you can actually reach 100% defense. So essentially, you can turn your Edin into an Angelica. And with Refi's support tile buff, Refi hits almost the entire map. So wherever you put your Edin, if he's buffed with Refi, he will still do a decent amount of damage. So that's a really, really good thing. And yeah, he has unique placement. That's pretty much his kit. So he's like an Angelica, a budget Angelica, even though he's mileage. Now I did try to mileage for Edin 5 times, and I didn't get him. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna skip him. I kind of don't want to, but since I might go for Albion and Yuri, I'm not sure if I have enough resources for Edin, and I can't really get him with how things are going right now. So we're gonna talk about Veronia next. So Veronia is actually also pretty nice, pretty nice. She buffs a character and gives them 100% defense and a lot of attack stats, a lot of crit damage stats, crit rate stats. So what this does is essentially she turns a soft unit into a unkillable unit. So it's not 100% defense, it's like 98% defense. It's near 100%. It's high enough that someone won't die unless they get fixed reflect damage or something. So for example, if you the most often paired unit with Veronia is Alec. So a lot of people use Veronia Alec, and Alec survives. So that's what a lot of people have been doing. Some people, like my friend, have been using Corette. So Refi, Veronia, Corette kills most tanks. Surprisingly, it kills most tanks. So, hold on. So, that's how strong she is. But the thing is, Like Albion, you're gonna have to keep in mind that you're gonna waste one slot just for a single buff support. So that's another consideration. So besides Alec, she's actually also very heavily used with Celia. Celia as in the mage. So Celia with Refi, Mitch, and Veronia will kill most units except Granhildr. She'll kill most units except Granhildr. So actually a few people have been switching from Nartas to Celia. This is because first of all Celia will survive skeletons, and when Celia hits a Granhildr, for example, she will kill any other unit that's not debuff immune or 100% defense. So anything that's not Edin, Angelica, Dalvi, or debuff immune, she will kill. And some units that are debuff immune, most of them will actually die if you have a decent Celia. So, for example, Nartas, Mitch, most of those things will die if they're not if your Celia is decently buffed and she has good ruins. Another thing is, imagine if she hits a Granhildr with Albion buff, she'll actually kill Albion also. And one other thing which makes Celia slightly superior in one regard compared to Nartas is she can very easily kill Glacia. If you guys don't know, Celia's damage is all base damage. The way she does damage is she weakens the stats of the enemy instead of doing additional damage skill types. What does this mean? Glacia only blocks additional damage skill types. She's not immune to stats weakening. So she can very easily be killed by Celia. And in the tournament, even +0 Celia, +0 Celia can actually kill her. So that's one way to use her. So I've been monitoring Celia because I'm very, very interested in her in the past. So around a few seasons ago, her usage rate was 0.80, and then a season or two after that it became 1.20, and then now it's around 8%. So Celia is seeing a boost in use rate, and that makes me very happy. And I think Glacia was released because I was talking to a bunch of friends before, and we were talking about how Nartas and Livia might be balanced in the future. At the time, Glacia wasn't released yet. We were around the Lyudmila banner. So Glacia wasn't released yet, and we were thinking the devs are gonna do something that either weakens Nartas and Livia or just makes Celia a bit more useful in certain scenarios compared to Nartas and Livia. And they actually did that. So Glacia is a unit which Nartas and Livia will struggle with, but Celia will have a very easy time with Glacia. So if the devs were to implement another unit that Celia will have an easy time with but will be hard for Nartas and Livia, Celia's use rate might increase by a lot. So yeah, that's a consideration. And you can't really use Celia and Nartas together because they both want to be turn 1. Nartas can be turn 2 if you want to protect her with Livia, but the thing is, you can't. It's very simple. You can't use Nartas and Livia together. You can't use Nartas and Celia together. It's gonna end up really bad. So you have to pick one. So yeah, after the Edin Veronia banner, we have the Yuri, Freesia, and Kalaron banner. So we'll talk about Yuri first. So actually, Yuri and Freesia actually do a lot of damage, but the thing is they don't penetrate 100% defense. And we already have Edin, we already have Angelica, and global in Asia we still use Dalvi. In Korea it's very low use rate already, for 30% for Dalvi. So yeah, the thing is 8 out of 10 of the top players are already using Edin. So a lot of players already have this unit that has 100% defense, and Yuri and Freesia cannot penetrate those. So I think Yuri is good, but Freesia I'm not too sure. She's also very situational in the fact that she needs ally graves, and she also she gets death guard after that. But in the first place, why would you need a death guard on a mage? What line? Where would you put her? Because if you want Death Guard on a mage, she'd be in a spot where she would be hit. If that makes sense, think about it. Will you put her somewhere you would put a Granhildr or a Lucius or a Mamonir? I don't think so, because that's too situational. If she doesn't get her Death Guard, she just wasted a slot. If she gets her Death Guard, why not just use Lucius, right? Livia can penetrate 100% defense, Freesia can't. Keep that in mind. So that's a really, really big difference with all the defense units. And also, Livia can 100% of the time kill Granhildr. Freesia will need a lot of support to do that. A lot of support. So less versatile placing as well. And if you try to protect her, why not just use a Nartas? Anyway, if she gets hit by a Nartas, she's in your DPS lane. You're gonna try to protect her. She gets hit by a Nartas, your entire lane's dead. Only Freesia is alive, and Nartas hits every turn, not every other turn. So next turn, he's just gonna kill you. So that's my line of thought. The Yuri, Freesia, and Kalaron banner is the one that I don't have data on. So the Lyudmila to Edin banner, I was talking about them, how they were used in Korea. This one is just my own speculations. Now for Yuri, the top players in Korea are actually kind of using her, but that's true for most units when they first release, so they're kind of testing her out. So the thing about Yuri is her tile range is really good. You can change her tile range anytime just by changing the soul gear. So if you guys don't know, at plus 14 she has the cross tile range, and at plus 15 she has the plus tile range. So what does that mean? You can change her tile range anytime. If you want to counter Albion users, for example, you can use the cross range. And if you just want to deal with more of the general decks, you can use the cross range. And she does also already have the automatic 2 death guards. So what does this mean? This means that she won't easily die from reflect damage, so she doesn't need something like a Veronia buff to save her. My opinion is Yuri is a decent warrior, a very decent warrior. Freesia, I'm having mixed opinions on her. I'm imagining her, she's not very good. All her skills are very attractive. She has a skill which makes her stats double. It says 100% stats or something like that. It's really attractive, but I'm trying to imagine it, and I don't think she's that good. Like, she's decent, but she's not that good. Like, for example, like Lyudmila, she's decent but not that good. So let's talk about Kalaron. Kalaron is essentially, he stalls the damage. So I was already talking about this to the I already made a video on this, but that was only for the member exclusives, so only my members were able to see that. So I'm gonna be explaining Kalaron again. So you probably already know because the skills were released, but Kalaron will slowly take the damage. So for example, you deal 100,000 damage to Kalaron. Kalaron will split that over 10 turns, so every turn he'll only receive 10,000 damage. So essentially, you can bombard him, but he won't die instantly. But the thing is, I heard that Kalaron will die almost instantly to something like a Christina. So that's also a consideration. And I'm not 100% sure, but the last time I checked in Korea, I didn't see a lot of top players use Kalaron. Most of them were using Freesia. Most of them were using Yuri. Kalaron and Freesia were almost not touched, so that's just another consideration for me. So overall, out of all these banners that haven't been released, I think that Edin is the most solid out of them. So I'm gonna be ranking them with how useful I think they're gonna be. So for me, it's Edin. I'm just gonna write it on the screen. It's Edin, and then Yuri, and then Albion, and then Lyudmila, and then Kalaron, and then Freesia. So that's just my own opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but more or less it's gonna be like that. If I miss some of the skills for Freesia, maybe my opinions might change, but the way I read it, I'm not too sure she's good. She won't be able to penetrate 100% defense, and she won't be able to penetrate Granhildr if it's, what do you call this? if it's without enough buffs or graves, or with Albion buff. So it's too situational. Livia will just bloop 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 kill all of those. So yeah, the one thing that Freesia might have over Livia is same as Celia, she doesn't do additional damage. So she can kill Glacia, most probably. I haven't seen it, but most probably she can kill Glacia. So what else? Yeah, I think that's about it. So if you enjoy my videos, consider subscribing, and the channel memberships are actually already open. So if you're interested in that, consider joining for a month. So it's only around 90 cents. I put the lowest amount possible. I think it's around 50 or 90 cents. So the money I get there, it won't go to me. I'm actually donating supplies to the victims of the Taal eruption.
Ako po'y taos puso pong... Ako po'y taos puso pong... Sabi... Ako'y taos puso pong nalapit po sa inyo. Nanawa po kami inyong tulungan.
So a lot of people were left homeless because of that, and a lot of people were actually they're not in need of food now. The last time I checked, that most areas have access to food. What they need now is clean water, shelter, and clothing, stuff like that, which is a bit more expensive than food. So I'm trying to generate my own money for that. I did go there last Saturday and I donated a bit, but I still want to go again. So if you guys want to support me with that, you could consider joining my channel memberships. And it's not one-sided. With the channel memberships, you will actually also get custom loyalty badges. So for 1 month you get Angelica, for 2 months you get, I think, Granhildr, 3 months you get Livia. So I have 6 badges, and for if you join the Sapphire level, I'll let you choose your own badge. So yeah, that's about it, guys, and thanks for watching.